I was able to go to the MTC here in Provo, but also the one in Sao Paulo. Because it was a Brazil, a mission outside the States, I needed to get a visa, but the church has some difficulty getting them for Brazil. So there's like a big waiting list. So I was about 6 weeks in Provo, just learning how to teach and some of the basics of the language. While like my group was just waiting to get our visas, and I was lucky. I got mine way ahead of everyone else, and I was able to go ship off for the rest of my time basically in Sao Paulo. So I got experience with both MTCs and how they're different, and I was able to learn or have more exposure to the language, and it was pretty fun. In Sao Paulo, they do things a little differently because like once a week or once every few weeks, they'll have missionary companions go out like in the area near the MTC and just practice talking to people and giving out a Book of Mormon. I like that idea. It's just, for me, it was like really intimidating because I not only could not speak, but I was still not very handy speaking with people, not very sociable before the mission. But other than that, before I even came to the MTC, I had a 6-month waiting period. So I was just working at home, getting things together, and continuing to go to church and getting things ready. Other than that, I can't think of anything really specific about before the mission. Just a lot of preparing to go. Because I was in Brazil, I had to learn Portuguese. So obviously it's better to like get as much as you can before you even get to the MDC, just learning the basics of the language. I had it a little easier because I studied Spanish in high school, so I understood how to do like the conversions of the verbs and stuff. But it would have helped a lot more if I had prepared more just practicing that. My brother had the same problem. He had me to someone who's actually been in the mission field, and he didn't really utilize it. And the first letter he sent home from the MTC to my family was that he was like basically having a really hard time with that. Basically, just having a real difficult time with the language because he didn't get a whole lot of preparing for that. But yeah, learning the MTC, like most of what we learn of is like a foreign language is in the field. And I didn't even really I wasn't able to speak it like decent enough until halfway through my mission. So it takes a while. Well, I left the MTC. I went to the bus. Actually, it was a plane to the airport, and I got to meet the mission president. And I've had 2 presidents while I was in the field, so 2 different experiences with rules. But the point was that he met me out with his wife, and they took me to the bus station where all the missionaries were. They were really nice, and I remember that was basically what helped me get through kind of the intimidating new location, because it's always kind of stressful going somewhere new. But for my first week, I wasn't actually with like an actual companion or a trainer. I was actually with in a tripla with like 2 other missionaries who were in control of an area, and I was just hanging with them for a little bit until I would go to my actual area, and they just showed me the ropes of how to do the basics of missionary work, and a lot of that I thought I would have to do, I actually had to change it because all you can really go out with is your scriptures and maybe some water. You don't take study material. I tried to bring my preach my gospel manual with me. First mission, they said, "No, you got to leave that here." But I remember that I was just sticking with them because I still wasn't used to being out in public in Brazil, and I wasn't sure. I was actually just worried if something bad would happen, but it was actually pretty safe. Just if I was just with my companions, nothing too bad happened. But I did remember I was like learning some of the cultural things. I got to eat some of their food, which I really liked. One night, my mission companions decided they wanted to get hamburgers, but I wanted to get acai because I was new to this and I liked it. My dad had told me that it was good, so I got that instead. And they got sick that night. So for the rest of the mission, I was kind of hesitant of eating anything with egg on it, or scrambled eggs at least. I don't think it was the eggs, but it could have. So they were out for a whole day, and I learned that it's boring being in the mission home with nothing to do. So yeah, it's great to work. My mission, the boundaries when I was there, encompassed most of the state of Espírito Santo, which is again north of Rio. The city Vitoria itself, I know I've read the history of the church starting there. It was like really small, and then it just started to grow in Vitoria first and start spreading out. But I don't have the specifics with me. But they have a really nice little church, like the first one they have there, which like which was where they started at. But they don't have a temple yet, as far as I can remember. The closest one would either be in Sao Paulo, or doesn't Rio have one now? So yeah, that was it. Yeah, I remember they were saying they would go to Rio. They have interesting stories of traveling by bus. The mission itself, I guess anyone that's been to Brazil, or at least in my area, knows that it's really hilly. So when you're walking around, you have to get used to going up hills, and you adapt to the humidity, so it's not too bad. Well, most of Brazil, they all speak Portuguese. They just have different accents. And I couldn't really tell because I've only been in Sao Paulo and Espírito Santo, but apparently people in Espírito Santo have an interesting accent, a sotaque. They like people, you know how we call ourselves Americans, or they refer to each other by their state. Like a person from Espírito Santo would be called a capixaba. Someone from São Paulo, blast it, I think it's not a paulista. It's basically, they refer to themselves by their state, not just as Brazilian. But yeah, like I've heard missionary companions compare like Espírito Santo basically like being the south of the United States, just that kind of feel, kind of more country, even though it's pretty industrialized in some of the cities.
What was one of the most crazy Brazilian foods you had?
I guess the chicken intestines would be the craziest that I can remember. Although they do have, I don't remember the name, but they have basically kind of like something you put with the rice and beans, which apparently is made from these weird ant-like creatures. I didn't know that until pretty much the end of my mission, because they only come out like a few times a year.
What was one of the most crazy or dangerous experiences you had?
One that comes to mind is one night me and my companion were just fine talking to people, and one guy wanted to talk with us at his home. So we go to his house. He has this big yard that was pretty black and dark to see. So we go to his house. He opens the garage to go in, and this giant dog jumps out and at my companion and chases him to the end of the gate, and I was chasing after them. It was a pretty scary adrenaline rush moment of our mission. But he was fine. That was just kind of scary.
What was one of the most spiritual experiences you had, or times you felt the spirit the strongest?
A lot of the times when I was praying to understand what to do, when I was reading my scriptures, or especially when we were bearing our testimonies. One really great moment was when we were helping a family. We got to see basically how the gospel changed their lives. They started off sad, like basically in a pretty bad area. The wife was just trying to find God more into her life. And so as we kept coming back, we kept seeing how they were starting to change and got closer, and the husband started listening in more. And they were all happy and started to go to church, and they were going to plan to get married. So yeah, it was pretty nice.
Let's see. What was one of the hardest things that you experienced on your mission?
You don't always get along with your mission companion. That's one thing you got to learn to do. There's a couple of times I felt really horrible because of it, and sometimes when things happen with mission rules, like I felt like I was being either punished for following them, or people thought I was following them too strictly, or if I felt I wasn't strict enough. So you can either be too hard on yourself, others may be too judgmental, or maybe everyone's in the wrong. But that was pretty hard, thinking that I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing just because I was doing what I was told to do, if that makes sense. I've felt a few other missionaries that felt that, like they were following the mission rules, but not like, it's not just that the blessings don't come on it right away, but you're being punished for it. It happens sometimes.
What was one of the greatest life lessons you learned on your mission?
Well, besides learning that the gospel is true and how great it is to have it in this world, because it's pretty terrible without it. Great life lesson. I think one thing I learned is that you can pretty much get along with anyone if you know how to speak to them. But if you speak with the Spirit, you're able to connect on a deeper a deeper level than you normally would, which helps kind of bridge the whole gap. Because even if someone doesn't fully understand what you say or even what you mean, they can understand your intent, that you want to help them or you want to just be a friend to them. I think people can get that.
What was one of the best skills or abilities that you developed as a missionary?
Well, the first one that comes to mind, the ability to speak to people. I said I wasn't very sociable before the mission. The mission field helped me open up a lot. Really important to learn how to speak to people and just carry on a conversation with them. Or even if you don't know how, just learning to not be afraid to make mistakes, because you'll make a lot of them in the mission field especially.
Most extreme weather you experienced?
It rains like crazy in Brazil sometimes, especially during the rainy season. But most of the year, yeah, you'll get some pretty heavy showers. One night we were going to the bus station. It was actually the same day that Japan had that reactor problem. Anyway, it was like thunder and lightning like crazy. Really heavy rain, almost to the point of being ludicrous. We're just waiting for the bus too.
And what is the best advice you could offer for a pre-missionary getting ready to go?
To pre-missionary? Well, I'd say make sure you build your testimony up, definitely. And make sure you understand why you're going out. And remember the overall purpose, like your eternal purpose for doing this, like how you're going to be helping others find their purpose. If you're going on a foreign mission, definitely work on the language. Other than that, I'd say just keep reading Preach My Gospel or whatever manual they're giving out now for that.
What's the best advice you could give to someone who just got home from their mission? If you could, any advice on far as adjustment or getting back into life after the mission?
I'd say, first of all, they tell you, read your scriptures, say your prayers, and go to the temple. That's the 3 basic things to help you just continue on from your mission, because mission was actually more of a start of the rest of your life. After your mission is just where you get to apply what you learned. And I'd say don't get downhearted just because things don't happen right away. If you don't get a job, if you have trouble in school, or you haven't found a girlfriend, or things are having relationship troubles, just remember that life, not only does it go on, but you still have a long time because you're still young, usually. Yeah, I'd say just don't feel downhearted because things are rough. Because they'll be pretty rough after 2 years. You have to readjust everything. I've been in a couple of different cities and little towns, so I get it. It kind of depends on where you are. But most people will take the bus. That's pretty much all through Brazil. And in some of the smaller towns, you would mostly get people would build their own homes, and most of the time they looked nice, but a lot of the times they didn't really bother putting a paint on it, so it looks like a bunch of bricks that are cemented together, and they have all their appliances and heating stuff kind of attached with it. I wasn't anywhere where it was like farming, but people would grow things in their yards, fruits. I knew a guy who lived pretty much not that they don't have jungle, but it's like in a vegetation basically. And he had lots of trees around his home, which he could just pick fruit from. Crime, I never had a problem in the mission, probably because follow the rules, but I didn't really have any issues with that. My mission, I guess, was pretty safe. But other than that, with transportation, some of the bigger cities, people would have cars. But if everyone in Brazil had a car, no one would be able to get around because their streets are really small. And there's a couple of times that we had to get through a maze of cars just to get to the other side of the street. Vitoria itself, it's pretty big. I mean, I got lost. I mean, when I was just visiting there, I just was going to the mission office most of the time. But yeah, Vitoria itself is a pretty industrialized city. They're focusing a lot on, building up and making themselves up like a first world country, basically. But with some of the other smaller towns, it still feels pretty, it still feels kind of like they're in between first world and third world. Just the way everything is sort of set up. It has the feel that they make it themselves, and wildlife, I guess. I didn't see a whole lot of specific stuff in the cities, just kind of things you normally see. But I would hear lots of tales of like basically small alligators. They call them jacare, I think. Probably said it wrong. But other than that, wildlife in my mission was just kind of didn't see a whole lot of it. I mean, I see small little animals and cool looking bugs everywhere. A lot of scary spiders. Yeah, but other than that, everything was nothing too unusual. I know once a week they'll have like a farmer's market, and you can buy some pretty good food there. But they've also got little stores everywhere. You find groceries like there's like if you were to look at it like from a capitalist view, there's like a lot of little stores that have a lot of the same things, but most of the time I got the feeling that they didn't have any real issues with business, like shutting down too much, because everyone was really used to going to small stores, like small bakeries, to get their food for the mornings, or little cafes. They're everywhere. And also, this is just a Brazilian thing. They have churches everywhere. It's pretty. People love to make congregations, and then they'll go to church together. And sometimes they were really small, like in garages. But like some of the more unified and bigger groups would actually build like a church for themselves and for anyone to come and visit. Going shopping, I know in Vitoria they have this huge district just full of shops and places you can go. The missionaries love to go there on P-Day just to get some things they wanted to, have as a souvenir. But some of the smaller towns, shopping was like everything was sort of condensed in like the center street, I guess, where they'd have like they'd have most of the bigger grocery stores or the shops that have books and everything that you would need. So yeah, whenever we would go shopping, usually it was in Central, unless we lived nearby like a bakery or just a really small store. One thing for certain is that Brazilians are really friendly people. They're really nice and relaxed. I don't really remember too many that were overly mean, but most people were really friendly. If it's those people that I've met who were from Brazil, like my mission companions or just people we would speak to, they would, when they invited us in, they were usually really friendly. They'd offer like some sort of snack or something. It's like or at least a cup of water. When people were kind of hesitant to let us into their homes, like some missionaries would get kind of angry, like they're obviously inside, but I think it's less about them not wanting to hear our message, not all the time at least, but people down there are very religious, and they actually have a bit of a respect for figures that they can see as spiritual leaders. And not everyone can see, like not everyone knows about missionaries, like what they do, so that can be kind of intimidating. But I've heard this an interesting way of looking at it. They're not rejecting us because they don't want to hear our message, but they're rejecting us because they're not interested in hearing it, but they don't want to just come up and tell you go away because they don't want to be disrespectful of you. That was one way of looking at it. But people down there, people in Brazil, they're very God-fearing people, as far as they can do it at least. Like I said, they have a lot of churches down there, and they do that. Like most people like to go to the Pentecostal churches, and there were a lot of Catholics too. My area I didn't see a whole lot of Catholics. I wasn't quite sure why. But we also had a lot of people who were part of the Jehovah's Witnesses, and this is the Seventh-day Adventists. That's actually the first. It was in the mission field. I actually learned about the Seventh-day Adventists in the first time. I thought it was a Brazilian church, and yeah, I finally got to learn something new. Well, they do have Catholic holidays, which if I recall right, they actually it's like a national thing where they'll have it's celebrated by everyone usually. I also remember that their schedule for meal times is actually way different because they actually have their biggest meal at lunch, and dinner's kind of our big meal here. And that actually kind of appeals a little better because they eat a large meal during the middle of the day, and that's basically when they're able to get together. Besides some of the more known holidays like Carnival, which I guess it's like a national thing, but I can't quite. Yes, sorry. There is the Brazil's Independence Day. That was a pretty big thing in my mission too. We'd have people that would go to Vitoria actually to celebrate, and missionaries actually got to, for once, be part of a parade they have there, which was pretty cool. Doing this means I don't care, but how you do it can show you just like how serious it means. If you do it really slow and like deliberately, it's kind of offensive. Just like, I absolutely do not care what you say. But if you just like, if you do it like just casually while you're saying I don't really like, it doesn't matter, it's a little not too bad. Also, the okay sign we do. Apparently that you don't want to do that in Brazil. That's an offensive sign. I remember going to basically it was like a monastery on the hill nearby Vitoria. Actually, it's like right across the river. If Vitoria, it's like the whole state. It's basically like an island, which is connected by the bridges. And on one side, there's a monastery, a Catholic monastery, and it has a pretty interesting story about this man. I believe is a saint, and it's been so long. People would go there, like the Catholics would go there to pray, and then they would light candles there. It was pretty interesting, actually. And the view up there was great. They have a huge mass inside, which I didn't really get to go to, but if you click the climb on the mountain, we saw monkeys too. That was kind of different. Lunch is their biggest meal, but every day it's usually rice, beans, and some sort of meat. Usually it's either fried or pressure cooked. And for me, it wasn't too much of a problem. I like rice and beans. They do cook the beans a little differently down there. They have pressure cookers. They like to cook it in. They don't like boil them too much. If you've ever had food cooked with a pressure cooker. The greatest thing that I like, most missionaries will love, is their barbecues called a churrasco. And if you've ever heard of it, it really is great, especially in Brazil. Basically, they have all the meat, they have it skewered, and they cook it over the fire, and they'll just bring it out and cut it for you, or you can just go up and get it. And surprisingly, I liked a lot, they actually serve chicken hearts, which, they just like little things you can pop in your mouth, and they're actually pretty good. It's just like any other meat, really. So that was a surprising, fun thing to get. But because churrasco is kind of like a big meal, I wasn't able to get it a whole lot, which made it all more special. A couple of P-days, we actually had our own private churrascos if it was like a zone thing. Yes, they're pastries. I always love, especially in the beginning of my mission, I'd go to a pastry and get either just like, they serve small loaves of French bread, which I just eat on the street. That's another thing. Apparently, Americans like to eat while we walk, but Brazilians like to stay in one place to eat, which makes some sense. So I guess that kind of made me stick out too much. They don't have like actual donuts. Like especially don't call them donuts, but they have these pretty good pastries called sozinhos. And if I remember, they were basically cream-filled pastries that were pretty tasty. I especially liked it when they fill it with goiabada, which is basically a jelly made of guava. Goiabada. Say it in English. I have a couple times actually ate jacaré, which is the crocodile, which was actually pretty good. I didn't really like eating chicken intestine. Like there was one of our members in a little town. They served us, and I didn't really get to enjoy it as much. But I was also sick that day, so that might have ruined it. But one thing I do know is I don't like liver. Like, again, we were eating at a member's home. They served us this meat, and I thought it was just like steak, but it tasted different, and I didn't really like it. But I ate it. There was this weird dessert, which was like rice or this grain that has been put into sweet milk, and it's like a really runny pudding, sort of, if you can get that, and you can eat it with a spoon. And I didn't like it. It's not the greatest thing ever, but I actually found myself enjoying it after a while. Sort of like eating like a bag of nuts. You just keep eating it, even though it's not like outstanding. But it was good. Another thing you'll like to know is about their pizza. Totally different from what we have. They don't really use a lot of tomato sauce, so it's kind of like a quesadilla that's been baked. But they also have banana and chocolate covered pizza. They've got ones that have basically, eggs and peppers and all sorts of stuff been put on it. So that's pretty different, especially compared to our pizza.
Yeah.
There are some chain restaurants, and I think I've seen a McDonald's a few times down there. Makes sense. What was really different though was the ones when we go to like a small cafe to get like a burger, and I mean it's usually not too different, but yeah, they would put weird, interesting things on their burgers. I remember eggs was one option you could put on it. Do you remember there was a little chain restaurant down there that had this? They put like this weird sauce on it, and only got it once. But yeah, most of their chain food's pretty expensive. And so we didn't get it too often. But I don't remember anything too specific about how not to get sick. You just don't eat. It was just basic logic. You don't eat meat that's not uncooked. You be careful, making sure everything's cooked actually. The mission field not only helps you bring people into the church, it also prepares you for the rest of your life. So when you're with your companion, you want to get along with them, not only just because you can work, but because how you treat your companion, how you work with them is basically how you're going to be working with your wife. Because that's kind of like a preparation for that. Or that's what I've come to learn. And so yeah, you'll have companions that you'll get along really well with. Some you'll be able to work well with. Some you'll have a little difficulty with. But depending on how you act or how you treat them, it'll help you see what you need to do to improve, or what you can do to how to act with different people. So yeah, things you learn on the mission, you're going to learn to apply in your real life. And learning how to apply them into your life is where you'll get the most experience of what works and what doesn't work. The way of pronouncing it is actually not too hard. Like when you figure out how the different signs, what they mean, you can pronounce the word pretty well. But the biggest thing is you want to announce it right, because some words actually change their meaning depending on what you inflect and what you sort of make, or like what you don't focus on. The better way to speak Portuguese is more in the front of your mouth. You don't. It's a bit different from how we speak, like where we just talk from the throat. They have some of the noises are actually nasalized. Like if I was to say falou or obrigado. And with the pronunciation, I know one example for sure. There's a word coco and coco, and they have two completely different meanings. One means coconut, the other one means poop. So you want to be careful with that one, or people will make fun of you. I think actually Portuguese would be easier if you look at it from how they're able to construct all their words just from some basic conjugates. Or when it comes to verbs, like if you understand how to speak, like if you understand the different tenses, it's like you just have the root and you just attach the ending to it, which makes it kind of easier. If you've ever taken Spanish, you can see that it's kind of similar. And whenever I see Brazilians trying to learn English, I learned in the mission field, English is a really hard language comparatively to learn, because we just have so many rules we break and so many little rules that we don't really think about. Their alphabet's pretty similar to ours. It's just you pronounce them differently, like A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So I suppose there's a couple letters they don't normally use except for foreign words. Like W is W, and they've got X and Epsilon and Z, or is it Zeta? Z, sorry. Other than that, like you can see their alphabets kind of different. They're like same to ours, just a few letters like they never really use because it's not part of it. I can't really remember which one specifically. You're going to love your mission, especially if you're in the right attitude. One advice I'd give you is make sure you get along with your companion, even if it's kind of hard. But your mission companion is going to be with you, so if you don't get along, it kind of gets hard to work. And remember to treat your companion well, and he'll probably do the same with you. With the language, just keep going at it, and don't be scared to talk with anyone. Talk with everyone, especially with kids. Kids will help you with your language a lot better because they're still learning it technically too. So if you can get over the fear of looking of making a mistake, then you'll probably be able to get really far. Because it's when we're making these mistakes, we can actually learn a lot from that. I especially say turn to the Lord whenever you experience a hard time, and always thank Him for your success, and make sure that you get the members working with you. In my mission, all our baptisms and all our conversions and most of our investigators came from the help of the members. And make sure the members are integrated, your investigators are integrated with your members, because they're going to help them stay in the church. I don't really see any point of bringing someone the gospel that can change their life and then just leaving them to themselves. Make sure they have friends. And I just want to say that I know that these 2 years are going to be the best year of your life. Do what you can to stay close to the Lord. I'd like to bear my testimony that I know that the church is true, and that the mission field, that missionaries are a vital part in bringing the gospel and helping other people understand that they're children of God. And I say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. The mission field was the greatest 2 years of my life. It helped me learn a lot. I got to help a lot of people and teach a lot of people. And I definitely felt I grew a lot. So going on a mission is kind of great for everyone when you think about it. There's a lot of sacrifice in it, but you also gain a lot from it. So yeah, people that are hesitant to go on mission fields, if you understand why you're hesitant and why you would go on a mission in the first place, you'll see that it's actually not as scary. I think that's the thing. People usually don't want to go on mission because they're scared or something, whether it's because they won't have enough money or whether because they're giving up 2 years of doing what they would normally do. But the whole thing about conquering fear is that you need to have a little more faith. If the Lord wants you to do something, then if you do it, He'll help you with the rest. Even if you face those hard times, the Lord wants you to do it. He's quoting, He always prepares a way for it, whether to do it or help you get out of a problem. The Lord has things prepared.